So today is a very special day for me. It has been over 2 months since my last hike in the woods. Unbeknownst to most of my viewers, maybe a few of my friends online, I had to have some surgery about 2 months ago to correct an issue that I had post-cancer surgery 7 years ago. Now, the surgery was minor, invasive. It wasn't all that intensive, but it left me with a lot of abdominal pain and a lot of recovery time due to the cutting through of the muscles and that type of thing. All good now. I'm still a little bit not unsteady on my feet, but I'm still not allowed to do a lot of heavy work. But this is my first hike out. That's why I've packed so light, just a little sling bag, as you'll probably see in a few moments' time. And all my purpose is to come out and have a coffee. But since it is early spring, I thought this might be a good opportunity to talk about something that we're all going to have to deal with within the next couple of weeks, if you're not already dealing with it, and that is biting bugs, mosquitoes, black flies, midges, ticks, whatever it is you have in your area. I thought this would be a good day to talk about a strategy to reduce the impact that they can have on you. If you're interested, keep watching. Well, this doesn't look like too bad a place to stop for coffee. A little inlet off at the side of Susie Lake, Quarry Lake. Little prominence of rock sticking out into the lake. And all I really have to do is decide which way to sit to avoid the wind. Otherwise, the view is fantastic. And the water has come to a boil. Now you could leave it sit for a minute for the water to cool off just a tiny bit before you start, but it's still a bit cool out here. I'm not too worried about that. So let's see. Now, as I mentioned, I would normally preheat the coffee pour-over device as well as the paper. I'm not going to do that, but I am going to bloom the coffee, which is to pour a little bit in, just that much, let it soak, and then start the pour. Now I can see right away that my coffee is ground a little bit more coarse than it should be. So I'm going to take my time and just put it in a little bit at a time. Keep the bed of coffee very low. Making sure that the water hits all of the grounds. Takes a bit of time. And that wind is not making it any easier for me. All right, I'll keep working at this for a couple more minutes, wait for it to pour through, and we'll get on with the rest of the video. All right, my coffee is ready. I think it's cooled off enough to enjoy. Oh yeah, that's very nice. But since I'm going to be talking, put the lid back on for a few minutes. Okay, mosquitoes, black flies, ticks, midges, no-see-ums, at least that's the bug what we call here. I know everybody has different bugs in their areas. Mosquitoes seem to be pretty much common throughout the world. What an annoyance, right? Everybody knows just how much an annoyance, so much so that some people will avoid going into the woods at all, especially in the peak bug season, which is unfortunate because it's also the nicest time of year other than fall. That's my personal favorite time of year to be in the woods. But other than that, right now, it's lovely to be out here. I'm out just ahead of bug season here in Nova Scotia. I see some little, probably the male black flies flying around, but they don't bite. The females will come out another week or two, and then they'll be all over me, and I'll have to employ the strategies that I'm going to talk about today. But what's the issue? I mean, why should we be concerned? I mean, what's the big deal with bugs? Well, on the very low end, and not so low, actually, it's quite a consideration, is the annoyance factor. When black flies are bad, at least here, and mosquitoes, they get in my face, go up your nose, they'll get in your ears, they'll get in your eyes. You swallow them when you go to talk or breathe or have something to eat. That's a bad black fly day. Fortunately, it doesn't happen all too often. Mosquitoes can do very much the same thing. Mosquitoes and black flies can also bite. Mosquitoes actually suck blood out, as we all know. Black flies bite and try to take away a piece of you when they leave. Same thing with the deer flies, horse flies. Those are well off. I don't have to worry about those, at least for another month, which is thankful. Some people, like my wife, when she gets bitten by a mosquito or a black fly, she can have huge welts appear, like the size of a quarter, and very, very itchy and very red, and they get very hot. It's a local inflammation, an allergic response, not a system-wide response, but enough that it causes her a lot of discomfort. I'm okay with that. That doesn't bother me in the least. In fact, I can ignore the bites of black flies and mosquitoes quite readily. I just don't like getting them in my eyes and nose and things like that. I don't think anybody enjoys that. But those are the lower end things. But for some people, a bite can actually cause a full-on anaphylactic reaction, which is a system-wide allergic response, which can be life-threatening. So that is serious. So it's something that needs to be considered for people with that severe an allergy to bug bites. But we also know that bugs carry things, right? Mosquitoes can have West Nile, Zika virus. There's a number of things mosquitoes can have. Black flies, I don't know about viruses or anything that I'm aware of, at least. Maybe somebody can correct me if black flies can carry things. Ticks, right? Ticks are present all year round if the temperature is warm enough for them. And it seems to be lately in Nova Scotia, the temperature never gets cold enough long enough, which means ticks can be present. Right now, they're probably all around me. I will talk about another video that I have in my playlist if you're interested in just a moment. But ticks, Lyme, there's a number of tick-borne diseases that we need to be concerned with. So there's lots of reasons to consider what we can do to prevent, mitigate, or respond to the bugs that we're going to encounter. So the first thing you have to understand is, when are they going to be at their worst, or where are they going to be at their worst? So for most places, certainly in my area, spring and summer. That's when ticks are at the worst. So the fall is just that golden time of year where everything is still nice to be out, but most of the bugs, as long as the temperatures drop down overnight, most of the bugs are gone. Winter, of course, no bugs, but spring and summer. And here we are, early spring. I'm just ahead of the bug season. Many of you are right in bug season already, I am sure. So we know, spring and summer, that's the primary time to be concerned with. Temperature. I was going to relate this to time of day, but it's more about temperature than it is time of day. Mosquitoes specifically don't like being out in temperatures below, I think it's 10 degrees Celsius or 50 degrees Fahrenheit. That's probably another reason why there's none out today, is because it's colder than that. It's not all that warm out today. So that's a good thing to know. And when it's really hot, they don't like being out. So oftentimes midday, mosquitoes are at a minimum. That's not a given, though. They come out. They can actually thrive in 75, 80-degree weather. So if that's where you're at, 80 degrees, that's a nice day here in Nova Scotia, by the way, then mosquitoes are likely going to be out. But location also plays an important role. Mosquitoes and black flies, for that matter, breed in wet, swampy areas. So needless to say that if you're near a wet, swampy area, you're going to be or have a greater chance of and coming in contact with a lot of mosquitoes. Now, I'm on the edge of a lake right here. It's not a stagnant water. There wouldn't be mosquitoes so much breeding in this area. It doesn't mean there wouldn't be any here. Black flies there would be a lot of, for whatever reason. But the nice thing about my location is, I've already complained about it a number of times, is the wind. That's a protective factor in that they don't like being out in the wind. It kind of will push them away, makes it harder for them. They'd sooner be where it's a little bit stiller and easier to reach their targets. So those are just a couple of things. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have another drink of my coffee, and we're going to go into the strategies that you can employ for preventing or at least mitigating and responding to the bugs. All right, before we go into the strategies for preventing or mitigating or responding to the bugs that we encounter, I just want to mention that I have a couple of other videos on the topic. First, I have a full video on ticks all by itself. I call it the Tick Talk, and it's something I think it's worth reviewing each year. Just take another look at, well, it doesn't have to be my video. I'd appreciate it if it did, but having a look at the tick video to learn and relearn things that we may have forgotten over the winter months about ticks. And the other one is a video that I just released just recently, and it's all about thermocells. And I did a full-on review, everything you want to know about thermocells and those pug repellent devices. So I'll put the link to both of those at the end. Now, I'm referring to this as a strategy. It's actually a risk management approach, and I have experience doing risk management in my former life. So that's why I talked about prevention. If we can prevent the bugs from biting us or coming into contact with them, that's the best of all things. If we can mitigate the risk, in other words, do things to minimize the chances of being bitten, stung, whatever, then that's the next. And then what happens if we are bitten or stung? How do we respond to them? So I'm going to actually focus in on the first two, prevention and mitigation. And it's a strategy because no one thing by itself is fully protective. Actually, I don't know if there is any strategy that will give you 100% protection against the bugs. But the more of these things that we'll talk about that you put together, the better your chances of avoiding being bitten and enjoying your time in the wood. And the first one, of course, is clothing. It's just that simple. I know everybody likes to get out. Now, if you're in Nova Scotia, you'll really appreciate what I'm saying. I have a daughter who lives in Florida, and they have a completely different attitude down there. Every day is another day in paradise. First sunny day in Nova Scotia, it doesn't matter what the temperature is, we're all out in shorts and T-shirts, and that may be true for much of Canada. So just because it's sunny and you want to get out and expose that pale skin to the sun doesn't mean it's a good idea. I learned long ago that it doesn't matter how hot it is, I'm wearing long pants and long sleeves when I go in the woods. Even if it's something very light and very breathable, something long sleeve and long pants, because that is my number one protection against biting insects. Specifically, I think about ticks. They're the ones that seem to have the most how should I say, life-impacting diseases in our area, Lyme disease specifically. So wear clothing. Now, there has been research on colors. So do certain colors actually attract or repel insects? It had been thought for a long time, I had heard this years ago, that the color blue was very much attractive to mosquitoes. Well, there has been research into this, and no, there is no specific color or range of colors that are more attractive. What they can say is that darker colors seem to attract mosquitoes and other biting insects more than lighter colors. Lighter colors have another benefit, and that is you can see them. So I know we're not all going to go out dressed in white. I don't wear white out in the woods, but lighter colors will allow you to see things like ticks on your pant legs. So there is a benefit to there. So clothing is number one. Now, after that, let's see. I've got a whole list right here. I just want to make sure that I don't miss anything. I do this and I highly recommend it. It is the single best thing you can do next to having long sleeves and long leg pants on, and that is to have your clothing treated with permethrin. There is a couple of different brands. Sawyer is the number one brand, but there's other brands of permethrin out there. You can even buy clothing that has been treated with permethrin and will last much longer than treating it yourself. It's right in the fabric somehow. Permethrin will keep the bugs away. That's not quite entirely true. Bugs will often come into contact with your clothing, but the permethrin kills them. So it will, ultimately, they won't get a chance to bite you, and that's what it's all about. So permethrin-treated clothing is my number one strategy. And I say that for another reason, and that is a lot of people don't like putting chemicals on their skin. And understandable. DEET is very, very effective at repelling insects, but it's an insecticide. It is, in fact, a poison. We're putting it on our skin. You got to know that some of it's going to soak in, right? Now, maybe that's not a concern to you, but it's a concern to a lot of people. If I can avoid using DEET products, I will. If the bugs are bad enough and nothing else is working, I will put DEET on, but it's not my first choice. There are some botanicals that are available that do work. They're icaridin or picaridin. I'm not sure which one is the Canadian version and which one is the American version, but it is a natural product, or I don't know about organic, but it's a natural product that has been used now for repelling bugs, and it does work. Almost. Well, okay, it does work. It just doesn't work quite as well as a strong concentration of DEET. And it doesn't last as long either. But I'm okay with that because, one, it's not a chemical that I'm worried about having on my skin. It won't melt my camera lens or stain my clothing like DEET will, and the carriers, the oils that are in the DEET products. So permethrin, or sorry, not icaridin, picaridin. They come under a number of different brands names, but those are the active chemicals you're looking for. They're not quite as good as DEET, but they're, I'd say, 80, 90% as good. You just have to apply them a little bit more often. So that's the next one. Now, in addition, there are lots of old-time and old-school strategies for things that you can put on your skin to repel the bugs. And I've tried a number of them. There's a number of plants out here in our woods, and there may be different ones in your woods. It seems to be any plant, leaf, flower that has a strong smell to it will actually repel the insects as well. I think that's a strategy the plant has to keep the insects off of them. So if you rub it on your skin, they do work for a very short period of time. And it's, they may not be at hand, but I just wanted to put that out. Sweet gale is one that grows on the shores of lakes around here. And I understand there's actually a commercially available product that uses sweet gale as the repellent in it. So they can be effective. Now, they're essential oils. I've looked at a lot of the different types of repellents out there, and honestly, stay with the known effective ones. Permethrin for your clothes, DEET or icaridin, picaridin for your skin. That's my recommendation there. Try the others if you want to, and if you've got some homemade concoction that works for you, that's great. But I have found very few of them actually work anywhere near as well or last as long or smell very good either. I mean, some of them can smell pretty bad at that. Do you know, another strategy that I've heard is your diet. The foods you eat, they can be cause you to give off an odor, presumably, that will repel insects. Specifically, there was research into whether, I think it's vitamin B12, would actually cause you to give off an odor that repels insects, and the research is saying, no, that doesn't work. It was tried, it was believed it might work, but through further research, it doesn't work. However, diet can play an impact on whether or not bugs are attracted to you. See, they are very much attracted to the CO2 and the heat. That they can smell the CO2, they can see the heat, and that's what attracts them to your body. Certain things you eat or consume can actually make that worse. Alcohol. Alcohol will actually cause mosquitoes to come to your skin. So I just put that out there. I'm not saying don't drink. That's up to you. I don't drink, but that's not my place to say whether or not you should or not. Spicy diets, believe it or not. I thought spicy diets might be something that would repel bugs, but it turns out spicy diets can actually attract bugs. Why? I'm not sure. And I think the final factor there is it's your DNA. Sometimes it doesn't matter what you eat, you're either repelling the bugs or you're attracting the bugs. So your specific DNA may be different than somebody else's. Like Gina's not bothered by, my wife Gina, is not bothered by the horseflies, deer flies, but she's just, chased out of the woods by the mosquitoes. Mosquitoes, black flies, I can tolerate them. I just don't like getting them up my nose and in my eyes. But they don't bother me as far as bites go. It's the deer flies and horse flies that, if you watch my videos, you know how much they're my arch nemesis for being out here. So that's just a couple of the strategies that you can put together. And let's see, did I miss anything else? Yeah, okay, here's a couple of good ones. Now, this has long been used and is effective, but think about it for a minute. A smudge fire, a wood fire, any type of smoke that you can generate, will it repel the flies? Absolutely. Even Thermacell, when I contacted the company, they say smoke from a fire is highly effective at causing bugs. Or to repelling bugs. They don't like flying through the smoke. Okay. How do you walk through the woods with a fire? I know there is ways. You can get a piece of some type of a mushroom that's dry and cause it to smoke, and you can get a little bit of fire. Okay, that's not practical. We all know that's not practical. Is it a good idea if it works? Yeah. But if you're stationary and you have the opportunity to build a fire, we're under a fire ban right now, so I couldn't anyway, then the smoke will work to actually repel insects. That's a known thing. Here's one. My father swore by this, and this is something that maybe you've heard of, and maybe your parents have heard of, or the old times woods people. Avon Skin So Soft. It was a bath oil, I believe. I don't even know if it's available anymore. But my father and his fishing buddies swore by it. They would get my mother to buy the stuff, and that's what they would wear on their skin, and they swore that it would keep the mosquitoes away. So that's an alternative if you have access to it. And the last one I'm going to mention, because people think I am not serious when I say that, for horseflies and deer flies, it's dragonflies. They're their worst enemies. They're the predator that hunts them down. The dragonfly wingmen, I have a video on that, and I'm sure people think it can't possibly work. Buy one. The most you're going to waste is $10 or $15, but I can tell you now, from my experience, as soon as they start coming out, I'll be wearing the Dragonfly Wingman off of my hat, off of my pack or somewhere, and it's not 100%, but I know that they work. That's just my experience only. So if you're interested in seeing my thoughts and hearing more about them, I have videos on the Dragonfly Wingman as well. All right, that's the list of strategies that I have. I mean, obviously, where you camp and where you set up for the day or the night is going to make a difference as well. Somewhere where there's a bit of wind, it's going to keep the flies off you. It's just going to be a little colder, maybe a little less pleasant to sit. But how much less pleasant is it than sitting in the woods where you're sheltered from the wind, but not the mosquitoes, right? So that's just some things to think about there. Okay, I didn't want to go on and on about this topic of repelling bugs. I just wanted to give you a few suggestions that you can put together as a comprehensive strategy, things that you can pick and choose from each of the categories that I mentioned so that you can prevent the bugs from ruining your trip out into the woods, or at least mitigate or reduce the risk of the impact that those bugs have on you. One thing I didn't mention is the whole head net thing. If it's bad black fly season, that's an absolute. You have to do that because you breathe them in. So but they're not really comfortable. They actually can get hot inside those head net things. I don't often wear them, but I've been out when it's that bad. So I should have mentioned that in the clothing part of it as well. And a hat. Keep them out of your hair. Keep them out of your ears if you can. Yeah, if you have any suggestions that you want to share in the comment section, that'd be appreciated. If I get enough good ones that I haven't already covered, I'd be happy to make a follow-up video to this. I know I haven't given you everything that's available out there, just kind of like the highlights on each of the strategies. I have not talked about responding to bites, what you can do if you get bitten. If it's ticks, I have a whole video on that. Otherwise, if it's mosquitoes and the like, well, there's lots of things that you can try, but that's really the topic of another video. Let's just leave it at that. Try the strategies I've talked about. If you have questions or comments, put them in the comments section below. But until next time, get out and explore and take that path less traveled because it will make all the difference. Bye for now.